Hello and welcome, I'm Sarah Payne, and this video is going to walk through setting up a configuration for Opensimulator which is both extensible, suitable for backup and highly maintainable. Let's start talking about some of the problems with the default configuration first. Okay. The first problem that you're going to come across with the default configuration is when you want to upgrade. On the screen here I've got the two configurations side by side, or at least the folder structure configuration. This is the old one and this is the new. This is how Opensimulator comes when you first unpack it. And we can see that we have bin folder inside here. We've got the config include, which is where a large number of the settings are. There are also some more settings directly in this folder, which means that when we want to update, because it comes as an entirely new bin folder, you have to take those current configuration files out, move them to another folder, then put the new bin folder in place, then move the configuration folders back, and it's just kind of messy. The second problem is when it comes to creating backups, and more specifically to restoring them. Because we have, by default, cache folders which get saved inside here, as well as settings folders, as well as data that is actually needed, like the script state. There are further problems with logging, in that this is only really suitable for running a single simulator by default, otherwise all your simulators will end up in the same log file. Similarly, you will find that your cache will be all mixed together, so will your script states. And most people, when they first set up Opensim, they end up duplicating this bin folder several times to run several different Opensimulator instances. Whereas it's not necessary to do that. The main robust and Opensim ini files get launched out of this bin folder. Now, what happens then is that it is possible to set the location for the configuration files. So what happens under this folder structure here, I'm missing a folder there actually, correct, sorry, folder, bin. Okay. This is basically the same, but we have taken the settings folders out. And in here, in each of these simulators, there will be one Opensim ini file, and that will refer to a second Opensim ini file, which is going to be located in this defaults folder. That ini file will in turn refer to another ini file which is in the settings. The theory being that the one in the simulator, has the items that are specific just to that simulator. This level here, or the default, will have items in it which are specific to all simulators. And then the one in the settings folder will have items which are consistent across the entire grid. Okay, similar idea when we come to looking at robust. I've missed another folder there in the demo, bear with me. Original structure, settings robust. Okay, so what we're going to have is these 4 files here, and this is what I was saying before. We have an Opensim ini file here that has the settings specific for Simulator 01. Same that this one will have the settings specific for Simulator 00. Both of these files refer to this file here, which in turn refers to this file here. Robust is exactly the same. We have settings specific to the map, the grid user, assets. That's most things specific to main, and then everything else that can go into the defaults has been moved into defaults. And again, this defaults file refers to the one that's in here called the Opensim constants. And this is the basis that we're going to set up, so that these ini files, they build up layer by layer. And by doing that, we can have one bin folder. That one bin folder will generate a different log file output for each simulator. They will all have their own asset cache. They'll have their own bakes. This asset cache folder will have simulated inside it. Same for data snapshot. And then we will have the data folder where we'll have map tiles, OARs can be saved. These are all things that we're going to want to back up. For Robust, you're going to want add-ins registry details because you will need that if you want to restore. Again, the FS assets, if you're backing up and restoring, you will absolutely need that. And under the simulators, we have the script engines, and then separately for each simulator. What that means is if we want to move this simulator across to a different server, for example, we can move the settings across. The majority of those settings will work and match exactly, but we can just update the server details, which will predominantly be pulled from the main settings file in the Opensim constants. Now, technically, it is not necessary to have the bin folder in here, because when we come to the backup script, they will back up everything inside this Opensim folder. Not everybody will wish to back up their logs. Not everybody will want the bin folder, and you could separate those out. However, I believe most people will want the logs. But going beyond that, the bin folder is just there for convenience. It doesn't take up a vast amount of space. And if you are restoring, it is easy just to restore so that you can, once it's finished, you can just hit start. And that's the plan. Okay. So let's talk about a little prep work. Now, I've already done this demo once. This is my second attempt recording it, so you'll have to forgive me for some of this being in place already. You can use MySQL, you can use MariaDB, and you can use PostgreSQL. For the demo, we're going to use MySQL. I'm just going to drop, have I got any? Nope, no databases. Show users. Oh, sorry, that one. Select user, host from mysql.user. Okay, so I have got my 2 users set up. I haven't got any databases set up yet. So what we're going to need to do is set up 2 databases for Robust, one for the assets and one for everything else, and then one database for each simulator. Now, because in here we're making 2 simulators, I'm going to make 2 databases, but you could make multiple more. One of my servers on the Fire and Ice grid, for example, currently runs 80 different simulators. That's not to say they all do. It depends on the capacity of the server as to how many you can realistically run on one server. Okay, so I'll create database, robust domain, create database, robust asset, robust domain, start to host. I'm going to do the same for the asset. So we've created 2 databases and we've given privileges on that database to also those on those databases rather to the robust admin user. We're going to do the same for the simulators now. So create database, simulator 00, and create database, simulator 01. Zero dot star to host with grant option, and I think I made a typo back there. Yes, I did. I forgot one of those. Let's move the database. Simulator 00.star. Oh, I've just done that. I'm going to flush the privileges and exit. And that's got the databases set up and ready. This next section is, we will come back to later. It refers to what I was saying before about when we launch Robust and Opensimulator, we are going to define which ini file it uses, we're going to define the log file it uses, and we're going to define the console that it uses. And this, combined with saving certain variables into the environmental variables at launch, allows us to do this. Most of this will be handled by a bash script and not typed in manually, though I am going to show you the manual way of doing it so you understand what's happening. And we're all going to work through the process of creating the actual structure, because I've called these the old structure and the new, and I will just quickly run through using the terminal commands just to create the actual folders. And additionally, we're going to download the files from Opensimulator next. Okay, so let's look at that first. One of the questions people often ask me on my blog is how we actually download Opensimulator. 0.91 is still the release package. However, there has been so many changes since then, it really can't be recommended anymore. Or at least I don't believe it can. No, so we're going to right click on the latest test package build and copy a link address. Following that, so let me get rid of the existing one. Okay, so we'll pretend that that wasn't there in the first place. Now we're going to do a wget. You can paste in there. That's the link we just copied, and that will download it for us. some hosting companies' images will come with Unzip installed, some won't. You can always check it. This one came with it installed. Okay, and it did actually originally, but I know there are some that don't. So we can now just unzip Opensim latest. Give me a second, so let me get rid of that. That's better. Okay, so we can see here we've already got the bin folder. And what we're going to do is create this folder structure, but in here, so it's in the root of the Opensim user. Where we set this up before in the previous video, this is where we're going to be working from, the user's home folder. So kdir home / Opensim. And then we're going to use the, in this case, we're going to CP, and we're going to take a -r because we want, the -r is recursively, so it will take all the contents of this bin folder, and we're going to copy that bin, and we're going to go to home / Opensim. And we're going to actually label it with a capital B because I don't know why, but when I was setting up the config files, I used a capital B. Okay, so now we can carry on. So mk, if I hit the up arrow twice, it brings me back here. And I just need to do a / data to set up the data folder. And if I do the up arrows again, I can just add another / format tiles. OARs. Robust. And simulators. And then once more to go down again, because we need a script engines. Okay, so we're going back to this one now. We've got logs to go, which is in line with data. Whoops. Scripts. Settings. Inside settings, we're going to have a robust. We're going to have a simulators. Inside simulators, we're going to have a defaults. And then we're going to have a simulator 00. And a regions folder inside there. And then we're going to have a simulator 01. And a regions folder inside there as well. So we're all the way down to here now, and we're into the Opensim cache. Once again, we're just into the folder structure, asset cache, data snapshot, robust. Inside robust, we want base. Okay, so that's got the folder structure created. Next, we need to move on and finish with that. We've downloaded that. Start actually creating some of these files. Some of them we are going to copy directly out of the original Opensim folders. Others are highly modified, and it is easier to create a new one and copy paste in the contents, then update them as necessary. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of creating these files and working with them. Some have advantages over the others. Some people prefer different ways. It is just personal choice at the end of the day. Okay, so this one is going to be in the settings simulator. So we are looking at being, just let me reopen that. So we're looking at working inside this folder here. Now I could create a new file here, call it a text file. This particular file manager will do what you will find Windows Explorer will also do, and even if I type in a file name such as it will add a .txt, and then I've got to correct it. Instead, I'm going to work in here. Opensim / settings / simulators simulator 00. And then we can type in nano opensim.ini. And we're going to come back and modify these shortly. For now, I'm literally just going to copy paste in the values, everything that's there, control it out, enter control and X, cd dot dot, oops, Mr. Dot, cd 01, now opensim.ini. And again, I'm just going to copy in these values. We will come back and edit these in just a moment. This is the advantage, of course, to having the server mounted. All the folders, I can work in either a graphical user interface on my local machine, or I can work in the console, and it's entirely my own choice. It is just however I feel like working. Just going to refresh that again though. Okay, so open with Kate. Now, this is where we start to see these ini files building up. Right at the top of this file here, we can see that we've got a include constant, and it includes all the settings from the Opensim ini file in the defaults. Everything else in here is pretty much okay to leave as is. The only bit that's not is this network port. Now in this case, I need to change this. Most Opensim grids have their first region on port 9000. just because of the way Opensim set up. It can be whatever you like. However, I've already got another grid on this machine running on that port, so we're going to change that, and this is going to differ from here, so you're going to see a live version of this being changed. Just bear with me while I remind myself what those port numbers are, though. I set them in the router a few days ago. Okay, so I'm going to start this on 6000. The remote admin port, I'm just going to make that a random figure for now. 10,001. I'll tell you what, let's add another 100 on there. Okay, so we will have regions on here. We'll start at 6010, then go 6020, 6030. Don't need to change any of this. Password, please don't use the password that I am. Just gives you a nice example of how to edit that. And now we're going to do exactly the same, but for simulator 01. That's 6010. I'm just making these up because I'm only setting up 2, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so simulators on this one, because usually I only make one region per simulator, so the region port will start at 6011 on here, but you could have 6011 through 6011 through to 6019. Okay, that's pointing out the bit I did to you a moment ago. Again, this is the bit we've just updated. We're talking about the port numbers. And the next one we're going to set up is the defaults, the Opensim ini file in the defaults. So this one will be going in this folder here. And just so that we've had both ways of doing this, text file. And I said I will need to then rename that to get rid of the .txt. In Windows that's a little more complex again. Right. A couple of things to take note of in here. First is that it calls in other files from the hypergrid ini in here. That's pulled straight out of the main Opensim ini file structure. We have the location for the OAR set, and we have a number of consts here. These are pulled from the higher level INAI file in the Opensim constants, and we just define each of them like this. The only ones we can't actually build up with these const settings, unfortunately, is the path statements for the other ini files. They have to be hard coded. So again, this is an include, so it includes the Open OSSL enable ini. That's again exactly like in the main or the standard Opensim ini file. The only difference is that it's a different location. some basic settings for X and Y engine, so it's easy to swap between them. The grid name is pulled from the Opensim consts. Same private port, again, all pulled from the const files. So you can see there's lots of this is getting pulled from those const files. What this does, it means that we are setting as little as possible in duplicate. Whenever possible, we set a value once in one place to keep things easier and more maintainable. Okay, so an external LSL, this is a reverse DNS, which you may or may not have. If you don't, you can, from your host, you can set one up using either Nix or Apache. I may cover something on doing that later. For the time being, if you don't have a reverse DNS, you can just leave that blank. Now, because this is only a demo server, I don't have a reverse DNS. The reason that's in here is this is specific to the server, not the grid. Database username, we said that was simulator admin. The simulator database password, again, please don't do this, I made it exactly the same. That is not secure, don't do that. And then the prefix, if you remember, I set it before so that it was simulator 00 and simulator 01. So the prefix to this is simulator, and then the second part of that gets set in each of the simulators INI files, and that's part of the build-up process. In fact, you can see here that once these are all combined, the simulator name itself is then called the database name prefix combined with the simulator number, which was set in the last ini file that we created in the what. Oop, better save that. I don't think, just check it, I don't think there was anything else in there I needed to change. Nope, that's pointing out the bit at the bottom I showed you, talking about reverse DNS. Nope, we're on to the consts file. Okay. Okay, so nano opensim.ini. Nope, actually it's not. Look, I nearly made a mistake. Opensim consts ini. And again, I'm just going to copy paste this, and then I could edit it directly here. However, I don't like the way this looks. I find that difficult to read because it's all in black and white. This is because I've done this a quick way. I've mounted it in here rather than mounting it properly like my other video describes. Consequently, it's very slightly buggy, but it was quick and easy for doing a demo, so it works. And we can see that everything in here is there already. Now there are ooh, I'll have to update that. Opensim, not Sarah. Guess where that came from? Demo grid. And the base URL, I have actually created a domain name for this purpose, but I've forgotten it, so bear with me. Okay, now I've retrieved that. You can change these if you want to. In fact, I'm going to have to, because I've already got another grid that's using some of these values. So instead of the 8,000, oh, I forgot what I set the other one to now. Bear with me just a moment. What did I set that to? I set that to 6,000. So these will be starting at 5,002. Okay. And again, you can see how I'm building these up. The inventory port is actually referring to the private port. And the private port has been set to 5003. If we wanted to separate that out later, all we need to do is just change that one entry here, and it will filter through to the rest of the configuration. Yep, that's all fine. Main folder name is what did I just do? Main folder name is Opensimulator, that's correct. That's also correct. All those look correct to me. Or we can just save that. These aren't actually required, but they might be helpful if you're setting other variables, and they're just built up from all these other settings up here. Okay, so that's got the main configuration for Opensim itself done, all the simulators. The next bit we need to do is look at some of the config files. Have I done this before, or have I done this afterwards in the website? Looks like I've done that afterwards in here. Because I will check that's in there in a minute, but there are some other files that we do need. And they need to go into the Opensim defaults location. That's the floatsum asset cache, grid common, grid hypergrid, OS, and the OSSL enable. Most of these are going to come straight out of here. So we're going to do the floatsum. We're going to take the grid common and the grid hypergrid. Some of these we're going to be modifying extensively, some will barely be touched. And the OSSL enabled. Okay, so the floatsum is one of the ones that's barely touched. All we're going to do is change this directory here. Everything else stays the same. Although, just to make this easier, so we're following the guide better, we're going to start with the grid hypergrid ini. And all we're going to do is change this includes section here, which I can copy, and I'm going to replace that there. That's that one done. The OSSL enable is actually not touched. We can rename it, but we're not going to change any of those values. The floatsum, we're just going to change this little bit here. All we're doing, we change this one cache directory, and that's going. So what this says is it goes up 2 levels and then goes down into Opensim cache and down into asset cache. And if I put that next to here, if we're in the, oh no, so sorry, 1 second. Okay, if we're in this bin folder here, or in that bin folder, so we're going to go up 1 folder level, up 2 folder levels, which is into here. So I mean, you might see it easier if I drop back 1 level. So what that says is that I'm starting from this folder here. I'm going to go up once, up twice, down into Opensim cache, down into asset. Grid common is one that's been changed quite extensively. Let's have a look at that one. Right, so we need to rename it first. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look very much like the same. There are all the same sections in it, and some of these consts are the same, but some of them are ones that I have made to work with the rest of the file structure created. So I'm actually just going to delete all of that and paste that one in. I'm going to do a quick check to make sure there's nothing I need to change in here, but I don't believe there is. No, there isn't. Okay, so that's all the simulators done. Now we need to look at robust. So we're going to nano robust.hd.asset.ini. I'm going to copy the values from here. Save those and exit because we'll edit them in a minute. And we're going to do exactly the same for each of these. Again, We'll come back and we'll make the modifications to these soon. Yes. Oh, I've just done that wrong, haven't I? That should have been... Okay. Rust.hg.name.ini. So that one should have gone into there. Let's check I've got that right. No, I haven't. I made a mess. Sorry, excuse me. This is what happens if you try not keeping things in the same order from one place to the other. I'll go back and fix that later on the blog. So we've done defaults and I've done main, which was the second one. Third one is going to be this one. This is the asset. Does that look right? I'll tell you what, we'll just make sure it is. There's loads of it. Control X. No. And then finally the map. And now we've got all those in place. We're going to check through and make sure, see exactly what we need to alter in each of them. And if you see, I've highlighted all the different areas that you do need to make changes. So we are starting in the defaults, which is a new file. This does not come as standard as part of the Opensimulator download. Robust database names, robust admin. I have a horrible feeling I put robust admin last time when I was doing the simulators. That should have been simulator. I need to go back and check that. And I called this robust main. And I called this robust asset. Anything else I needed to change? I don't think there is, but we'll have a quick scan down and see. You might want to change that. I've left this like this editable rather than doing it dynamically, because some grids will have the in them, some won't. You know, for example, welcome to Fire and Ice grid doesn't sound as nice as welcome to the Fire and Ice grid, and therefore I've left this open. Everything else there can stay the same. Yes, it can. Okay, so the next one we need to look at is the robust hg.main. Don't think anything in there needs changing, actually. Oh yes, it does. Look. In fact, I've done a little G there. That should be a big G. And I don't have a robust HG main. I really thought I did that. Anyway. Again, we've got console user. Don't use those. It's just quick and easy for the demo. There's nothing to change in grid user. I'm just going to open it, make sure it looks correct. Yep, there's nothing to edit in there. Nothing to edit in the asset, because most of these are being set in the defaults and the Opensim constants files. Yep, nothing to change in there. And the map, I don't think there'll be anything to change in here either. That would be better linked with one of these const values through to the main settings file. But I will leave that you to do that yourself. You should be able to see the idea with that by now. Okay, the next one we need to look at is the logs. Sorry about the slight glitch in the broadcast there. I spotted a very minor mistake. Those of you who've been eagle-eyed and were reading will have noticed that I've just updated the path and the file name for the logs configuration. It should be in settings and it should be called opensimlogs.config. Again, you can change this, but this is the file name that I launched from the bash scripts. So if you're wanting to use my scripts, use this file name. and we can just copy paste this. There is a very slight alteration to that file in the middle. It is around the log file appender, and that's just that we tell it to use this pattern string here. What that lets us do is take export variables to the environmental variables of the machine, and then from there they get used by the logger as Opensimulator or a robust start, and it will create files based on that. More details on that in just a moment, because it's time to actually start launching some of these services. We're going to do the manual method first, and then we will go into doing the bash scripts in a separate video. We're going to launch a second window in here. Okay, so alright, so I'm going to start by doing robust, but the first thing we do is start tmux. That was a Control B, then a Shift and $sign. And then we can do a Control B and a apostrophe. Oops, no. Right, Control B and comma, not apostrophe. And we're going to have an asset. Control B end for a new. Control B C will create a new window. This is all handled by the script later. Again, Control B, comma, grid user. Control B C to create a new window. Control B, comma, main. C, create a new window. And map. And what we're going to do, we're going to launch all the different services in these different windows that we can flick between, either using keyboard controls or using the mouse. Okay, so we're going to start with that first line. And this is what I said about us exporting values to the system variables. This is saying that we're exporting it to a robust main.log. This unlimit is something that isn't really needed if you're using Windows, but it is if you're using Linux. Again, we're going to support an Xterm. And then we need the launch itself. And actually, I've just spotted a very slight mistake that I've made on the blog, and that is using this little title symbol here, which unfortunately won't work in this situation. So I'm just going to pause the recording, fix that, and then we'll go back to launching. Okay, so I changed that title to be a //settings, and that's now launched. And we can do almost the same thing for all these others. We will need to do all these export bits again, which is why I said this is a manual version of the process. In the final version, you will not need to do this. Now, difference here being we're not going to launch main, we're going to launch map. And again, the console sim you may want to consider changing this so that it's specific. Because what I should have done actually is change that. So we'll go back in. We won't do this because what I should have done here, and I almost forgot with it being manual, is where I exported that should have been map. So that's redone that. Now I can copy this in. Remember that we do need to change that to map. So we're telling it to start with that file. That file includes all the others. We're starting with the local console and we're using the log settings, and the log settings pulls in this bit here. Or this bit here actually, because I replaced it. Oh, what have I got there that I've got wrong? List on port 7? Let's have a look. What did I do there? Simulators, robust map, or no, that will be in this one. Oh, did I not change these? Maybe I didn't save. Okay, so what have I got going on here? Okay, so I've just reopened the settings file, and where that said port 7, which almost nobody will have access to listen to unless you are root, you can see I've made a typing mistake. That should be 5007. So if I save that, as just an example, it told us there what the problem was. It doesn't have permission to listen on port 7, or it checks that we do. Now we've got exactly the same process to go through for grid user. So I've defined that, limit that, export term, once again we need to change this from main to grid user, and we're done. Last one for robust. Why can't I highlight all that? That's annoying. I don't want all of it. So I'm just going to do that one again. So that's not robust main. This is robust asset this time. I've done the unlimit. Export term. And the actual mono launch. Just do want to mention this one while we're here. If you're running on a dedicated server, this is a good idea. If you're running on a desktop, do change that to desktop. That's it. Okay, so that's got all the robust services running. Next, we need to look at the simulator services. Again, we're going to start in Tmux. Now, this will be interesting because I haven't actually tested the router and firewall configuration I've made for this demo yet. So this may or may not launch. Well, if it doesn't, then you can see me debug the process. Okay, so first things first. Control B, create, comma, 01, previous, Control B, comma to rename, 00, and Control B, $sign. So the Tmux grouping is called simulators. And I've got simulator 00 and simulator 01. And it's being awkward about the export again, so I'll just copy both lines. And this time it's actually easy because it is correct saying simulator 00. I'm going to export the term. What have I done? Give me a second. I know what I've done. I'm not in the right directory. Does help. I did say that there might be errors here because I haven't checked the firewall routing that I set up for doing the demo. I'm not actually going to worry about this because that is literally just a firewall issue. You can already see exactly how this whole system works. So once again, it would just be a cd opensim /bin. And then this is just a case of doing all this again. Export that as one. Export term. Yeah. And that's 01. Again, this is not quite working because we didn't set up the region files properly. That's something that would need doing, and we haven't set up, or I haven't set up my firewall and port forwarding correctly. But that's not important for the purposes of the demo. That is just a firewall issue. That's it for this particular video. In the next video, I will be going into some of the bash scripts. And in the main guide, which is set up Ubuntu 2004 for Opensimulator, except it's not, is it? Give me one moment. That's the one I'm looking for. The Opensim server setup using Ubuntu and Windows. This has got all the different stages and all the different videos that we've been working, or I've been working through. The next one we're going to look at is the useful scripts, where we will look at launching all this automatically, launching it at system start. For the time being, thank you very much for watching. I'm Sarah Payne. I hope you found this useful. For those of you who don't know, I'm also the admin and owner of the Fire and Ice Open Simulator Grid. Thank you.